Despite having secured an unprecedented military advantage across multiple fronts in the wider Middle East, Israel remains heavily reliant on the United States, whose long-term strategic interests do not always fully align with those of the Jewish state. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's ongoing visit to Washington, D.C., during the course of which the future of the confrontation with Iran is expected to dominate the discussions, provides a very compelling opportunity and hook to examine what lies ahead for Israel and its place within the evolving Middle East. Joining us now to discuss and explore these questions are Farid Shkourly, independent foreign policy analyst and research fellow at Research Institute for European and American Studies. Welcome, Farid. And joining us from Morocco, Aurelia Tobele, historian, policy analyst, director of research at the London-based Forum for Foreign Relations. Well, welcome to both of you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much indeed. Farid, my first question will be put to you. So this meeting is taking place today between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump at a time when relations are very strong, of course, but they're not experiencing their best moments. There have been some criticism levied against Netanyahu by President Trump. What is at stake for Israel at this juncture? What is it that Israel wants to get from the United States and is struggling to get from the United States?
First of all, I believe President Trump is the best friend Israel has ever had in the White House. There could be disagreements, but those could be solved easily by simply talking to one another. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington, D.C. means Israel is now determined to speak about these disagreements directly to President Trump. And one of those points to be raised during these discussions is what is the future of Iran is like.
Thank you, Farid. Well, I mean, let's be very clear. It looks like, of course, naturally, Israel and the United States, of course, natural allies, but they do not agree in relation to everything. They may not agree about the extent to which Turkey is very powerful in Syria, as long as the current juncture is concerned and the future of Iran as an entity is concerned. What are the key sticking points in your judgment?
Well, naturally, the US and Israel are quite different countries. They have different powers. However, where they do overlap is largely on their Middle East policy. Any differences that identify the US and Israel are, as President Herzog recently commented, tactical rather than one of real ends. So the key issue for Israel is, first off, the most imminent threat, which is the Iran war and the use of Iranian proxies, which they are actively trying to combat. But also they are quite concerned about perceived Turkish encroachment into what are their northern borders or boundary area through Syria mainly. And so that's a sticking point that Netanyahu might want to talk about in Washington, but we'll have to talks develop.
But apart from Turkey and Syria, apart from many other issues, when it comes to the ultimate fate of Islamic Republic of Iran, do you believe Israel and the United States are in full agreement? Because President Trump quite often says that there's a new regime in Tehran and that there may be a glorious future for Iran. But Benjamin Netanyahu and his government and Israeli thinking has been for years and decades based on the fact that the system there should collapse, otherwise there'll be no peace in the Middle East. Do you think on that point of the future of Islamic Republic of Iran, there is a full alignment between these two countries?
I think Trump is a man who says quite a lot, but does quite a lot else. You might say one thing one day, do another day, and I think that's precisely what's happening in this war. Trump has repeatedly expressed a willingness, at the very least, to try to come to some compromise with the Republic of Iran. I mean, this MOU was received and as disastrous, simply collapsed. And no one's talking about it now, but I think it did show quite a willingness from Trump to give the Islamic Republic a chance to parade to the world that they had mended their ways. Obviously, Israel, having been a player in the region for a long time, and its government, its military forces are far more used to the intransigence of the Islamic Republic and its proxy forces, and they know really what is best for the region. I mean, I've done quite a lot in researching the ideology Islamic republics, they see it as an eschatological mission to build up their forces, wipe out the West, and stage Islamic revolution elsewhere. It's a very, very potent form of third worldist thought, and I don't think it has anything really to do with the religious identity of the republic itself. That being said, at the end of the day, is the one who will be providing military resources for any kinetic warfare, and his decision is very, very, very important. I think that's why is going to Washington at the time that he is, and we have yet to see what they agree on.
Thank you very much indeed. Farid, I mean, do you think this war, which is not over yet, there's a memorandum of understanding and we don't know what happened to it, I mean, there have been no major escalation over the past couple of days, but you never know what will happen between Iran. I mean, we've also been observing very strange form of convergence of the two theaters of war, Ukrainian war, Russia-Ukrainian war, and Iran-Israel-US war, kind of converging in the context of the vessels in the Caspian Sea being attacked by Ukrainians. Question to you is very basic. Do you think, under the current circumstances, Israel has managed to ensure that Iran's long-term strategic behavior is going to change? Because there has been no sign of Iran changing its mindset. The destruction of the Israel is an objective. Is there anything fundamentally going to change about the way Iran perceives Israel?
I don't think so. As long as the current regime in Iran is in charge of the country, the long-term objective will be on the destruction of the world's only Jewish state. And Israel is a powerful country, and they will do their very best to ensure the security and safety of their country. For Israel, the only way to resolve this conflict is to have a government change, have a regime change in Iran. And that's more likely, that's the Israeli objective, that's the Israeli goal. That's what Israelis are trying to achieve at the moment. But there's also another important point that the Israelis will raise during the Washington meeting. That's on the Iranian proxies that have been largely weakened or destroyed in the Middle East.
Aurel, what do you make of you have written extensively about the so-called axis of resistance, about those entities, non-state actors supporting Iran's endeavor in the Middle East. To what extent do you think that their fate should be part of the wider peace between US and Iran?
Well, I recall reading a certain analysis once which referred to this axis actually as the axis of resilience, mainly because it was believed that it would simply never go away, and that these resistance factions, or so-called resistance factions, would be supplied indefinitely with Irani, with arms and so on, and other forms of support. But what we've seen remarkably in the year is the deterioration of these groups, paving the way for real negotiations on various files, a Lebanon file with Israel, real progress that is being made in anti-corruption efforts in Iraq, for example, and also the deterioration of the Polisario Front, that in the Moroccan Sahara, it's this group is by Iran and by Algeria. And what we've seen is that this axis of resistance is no longer really able to do anything. And right now, what they are doing mainly is posturing. They're trying to wait for the outcome of this war to see if Iran will be able to recover, because these groups need money. It is what makes their world go around. And they will wait out this war for they can. But right now, of any big conflict or participating in it, they're very, very, very limited. And I think the US and Israel know that, and Iran is beginning to realize that.
Thank you. Farid, a recent NATO summit in Ankara appears to have marked something of a diplomatic success for Turkey. President Donald Trump used very positive, very commendatory language in relation to President Erdogan. There's a talk, very specific talk, and Israel is very unhappy about these elements. The supply of F-110 jet engines and the possibility of Turkey's eventual return to the F-35 program. Israel is very unhappy with those elements. Is it primarily about Israel thinking they're going to lose their coalitive military edge, or is it something far more fundamental? It's about sort of strategic anxiety about Turkey being fundamental and very consequential country, actually competing with Israel and defeating it in separate areas of the wider Middle Eastern landscape. Is it about the first or two, or maybe third factor, of which I'm unaware?
Well, I don't believe it's about the quality of the aircrafts, because the Saudis will obtain them very, very soon, probably in 5 or 7 years' time. When it comes to Turkey, I believe there are huge disagreements over Syria, and Turkey's growing skepticism of Israel's actions in the Middle East. But these disagreements will be resolved sooner or later. Turkey and Israel, this relationship, this special relationship, it goes far back beyond the leaders of two countries and their objectives in the region. For instance, between Adnan Menderes and David Ben-Gurion, there was a huge alliance against the Ba'athist movement in the Arab world. When it comes to Turkey obtaining the jet engines and returning to the F-35 program, it won't be easy for Turkey because there are hurdles they need to pass first. There needs to be congressional approval for Turkey's return to the program, and when it comes to the jet engines, the Khan, the domestically developed Turkey 5th generation Stealth fighter jets, they are more likely to get those. But another important factor is Turkey's F-16s. They are quite old and they need spare parts. The question is whether they will get them or not, but the Turks have done an incredible job in integrating their domestically made technologies and spare parts, rockets, whatever, into the American F-16s.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I remember back last year, I think it was at the beginning of the 12-day war, I had an opportunity to interview Israel's former Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, and he listed a number of countries in the Middle East which he described as foundational linchpin countries. He referred to Iran, whatever we may think of Iran, Iran is a linchpin country, Turkey, Egypt, and he then added Saudi Arabia and plus Israel. To what extent it's very important for Israel in the long run to have good relations with Turkey? And what should be the role of the United States in making sure that Israel and Turkey never reach that point of irreversible confrontation?
Well, I think we can look at the question a number of ways. That we can ask it backwards. To what extent does Turkey need to realize that provoking, which has, with considerable U.S. support, but still very stalwartly in the region, managed to degrade all these militias, as well as the nuclear capabilities of a regime that was hell-bent on its destruction? To what extent should they be provoking Israel with neo-Ottoman posturing, both in the educational system, but also in statements by the foreign ministry about liberating Jerusalem and so on? Much of this is simply political rhetoric that is used by these regimes whenever they feel forced into a corner by their own population, largely because it is a perfect way to evade accountability and create a media storm. I don't think Turkey has any real intentions to engage in any kind of military conflict with Israel. I think they are criminally perhaps sending those messages because they want to show that they are still a very powerful country in the region, which they are. At the same time, I would say that the reaction from the Israeli government to this kind of posturing has been over the top. There have been statements made by various Israeli ministers, some of whom have absolutely no business in foreign affairs, simply not within their remit, making statements about Turkey that are deeply damaging. Right now, what I would say is that the US needs to be very aware that Turkey still has as a linchpin or a springboard for the Hamas terrorist network. Actually, they realized it very well themselves. On the 23rd of July, OFAC, the U.S. Treasury, sanctioned a money exchange that was laundering money for Hamas, and it was also, curiously, sending, I believe, to the Foxtrot network based in Sweden, which is a Kurdish mafia group associated with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, these are actions financially that are very, very damaging, and that the U.S. should take into account and should discipline where possible. However, what it should do also, simply, is pursue a very rigorous de-escalation pathway for both countries, because both countries, I believe, have much more from allyship than they do from enmity.
Well, Turkey and Israel used to have very fantastic relations back in the 1990s, of course. And when I interviewed Ehud Barak a year ago, he said it's the most natural thing in the world for these two countries to have best relations. It's within their best interest. And one particular example, Israel quite often describes itself as the only democracy in the Middle East. I don't know when they say that, do they refer to the wider landscape, including Turkey as well? But Turkey is also democracy, whatever one may think of it, of course. Regarding Syria, there's a massive confrontation between Ankara and Israel there. We remember, just before December 2024, all the actions taken on the ground by Turkey and Israel simultaneously led to the collapse of the government of Bashar al-Assad. I'm not saying they were cooperating, but the concurrent measures taken by them led to the collapse of the system there in Damascus. And then afterwards, they started to compete again in Syria. One particular point of view I would like to clarify. Turkey seems to be absolutely determined, hell-bent on ensuring Syria's territorial integrity. They believe the strong government in Damascus will be a good thing, but Israel does not seem to be interested in that. What is your evaluation of that friction in Syria?
Well, you are right. Technically, when we look at the actions that were taken by both Israel and Turkey during the era of Bashar al-Assad, their actions led ultimately to the collapse of that regime. But these were mainly for very different reasons. Israel was able to precipitate that collapse through the degradation of the capabilities of Hezbollah in Lebanon, which was very, 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 very bad, with Bashar al-Assad as a militia with which he enforced his autocratic. Turkey, in the meantime, was backing and funding a series of groups, among them Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which was led by Abu Muhammad al-Julani, now Ahmed al-Shara. And there are a lot of concerns in Israel about the past of this current president. We know that he mediated simultaneously with Al-Qaeda and briefly with ISIS as well. So there are certain sensitivities, of course, when it comes to Syria. However, what I would say is that President al-Shara does not really want to be a Turkish leader. He a leader in his own right. He wants to Syria into a new age. He said as much in his recent interview with Al Jazeera. That he has no real interest in conducting any kind of military offensives in Israel. They much rather have security agreements. And perhaps this could pave the way for a genuine peace agreement. Right now, though, as long as Israel and Turkey continue to put the trees before the fire, as it were, they won't make, respectively, any progress on the Syria file.
Farid, I mean, we're discussing a wide range of issues here. Of course, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington, that's very important. But let's have this regional perspective. Azerbaijan played an important role in making sure that the decision, as we understand, of course, the Israeli cabinet's decision to recognize events of 1915 as genocide has not been approved by the Israeli parliament, by Knesset. There are certain sensitivities involved, of course, naturally. Do you think countries like Azerbaijan could play a role not so commensurate with their geopolitical sort of size and clout? Because after all, what's happening between Turkey and Israel is a matter of a global significance, and Azerbaijan is a relatively small country.
Well, Azerbaijan could be a small country geologically, but it doesn't mean Azerbaijan is not an emerging middle power. Azerbaijan has proved its diplomacy.
There's a phrase that you could be small in terms of your population, in terms of your size, but you will be big substantively. This one applies to Israel as well, of course.
And the United Arab Emirates, I would argue, because they've done a fantastic job in bringing peace to the Middle East.
Sure.
The wider vision is to create a new Middle East where everyone can develop economically. But when it comes to the Israeli government's decision to recognize the events of 1915 as a genocide, it was a political tool employed to apply diplomatic pressure on Ankara, but Azerbaijan's skepticism proved pivotal in reversing the decision of the Israeli government as they froze the process to go ahead with the recognition of the events. The role of Azerbaijan Foreign Ministry is also important to highlight because Azerbaijan directly reached out to Israel and asked them very, very kindly to reconsider their decision, and this worked. They have now frozen the process, and that proves one more thing, how much Israel genuinely values Azerbaijan as a strategic ally and a reliable partner.
Thank you. Aurel, I'd just like to hear your reflection on the role played by Azerbaijan in the context of the confrontation between Turkey and Israel. And also just one follow-up question immediately. Do you believe the current actions taken by Israeli government in the wider Middle East is actually helping the cause of the Abraham Accords?
Well, regarding Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan and Israel have extremely close relations. Azerbaijan, as you know, provides about 40 to 60% of Israel's crude oil supplies. And also, reciprocally, Israel has a very good armaments supply relationship with Azerbaijan, supplying about, I believe, 70% of its armaments. But these relations go beyond simply trade. I think there's a reason why there are many Israelis who are in Baku, and likewise many Azerbaijani individuals who find themselves wanting to travel to Israel. There's a tremendous amount of cultural value in having these relations. The same way that there are tremendous ties between Azerbaijan and Turkey. Historically, these two have been seen as two peas in a pod. Use of their very strong ethnic cultural ties. And I think Azerbaijan is very well placed local actor to mediate any disputes between Turkey and Israel that might be seen as comparatively minor. However, I still believe that the U.S., which maintains very strong relations with both of these countries, should step in to resolve any disputes that might be seen as having spillover capability into kinetic offensives. Regarding the second question, I would say that Israeli actions in the region are very subject to misinterpretation, but actually they have helped, not hindered, the Abraham Accords. The real hindrance to the Abraham Accords was Iranian-backed proxy activity in the region. I mean, without Hezbollah, we would not see any kind of friction between Lebanon and Israel on their respective issues. Without Kataib Hezbollah and the Popular Mobilization Forces that are operating in Iraq right now, we've seen perhaps as much Iraqi vitriol against the Abraham Accords, so that talking about normalization is now subject to a legal ban in Iraq. I think now that there's this duration of the Islamic, we're in a position where the Abraham Accords can be worked on, where they can be expanded. To be honest, the most significant winners from this fresh round of hostilities, I would say, with the Islamic Republic have been Israel, both of whom are Abraham Accords partners. But there's a reason right now why Donald Trump is hinging the provision of a nuclear program to Saudi Arabia on them joining the Abraham Accords. It's because he thinks it's a good framework. He didn't think it was a great framework. He would not ask him to join. So I think the actions of the Israeli government or the Israeli military, both of which can be examined in their own right, have all been conducive to an environment in which joining the Abraham Accords from local actors is seen with more popularity. However, the real danger lies with the people and the population, who might not necessarily appreciate all the complexities that are involved in the policy decisions that are made by their own leaders or leaders in neighboring countries. What they see, unfortunately, is a series of I would say, very oppositional media when it comes to Israel. They have no idea about the Israeli experience, nor do they ever come across the Israeli argument unless it is being derided. And so I think that is something that perhaps the Abraham Accords should aim to change, is at the very least offer Israel the opportunity to present its case in these countries.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Farid. Thank you, Ariel. Very grateful to you for your time. Naturally, the meeting between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump is still underway. We are not able to reflect upon the outcomes of the meeting. To what extent that meeting will be consequential? It's the first meeting since the beginning of the war. It's not a meeting which is supposed to produce the impact which will change everything, but it will be the sort of probably part of the wider chain of developments leading to that ultimate eventuality, as to the nature of which we still could cogitate at some length. Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Turkey and Israel remain two of the Middle East's most consequential and powerful regional powers, alongside Iran and, depending on one's assessment, Egypt and also, of course, naturally Saudi Arabia. They are helping shape the emerging strategic landscape of the region. But how these relationships evolve and how Washington, D.C. manages them may well determine what the next Middle East looks like. You've been watching Context. I'm Orkhan, Amashov, and see you very soon.